I never thought I'd say it, but the wait was actually worth it. After nearly 2 years of literally nothing, we have finally received the 12-minute long gameplay reveal trailer for Marvel Spider-Man 2. And trust me when I say there is a ton to unpack in this one. I'm going to be breaking down the trailer scene by scene and filling you guys in with everything you might have missed. We start things off with a bang as we get our first look at Sergei Kravenov, aka Kraven the Hunter. He was the voice that we heard in the original reveal trailer, and man, I have to say he looks like a beast. He's wearing the claw necklace and lion mane vest from the comics, as well as an animal skull on his shoulder, and we can just see the sheer size and power of Kraven as he picks up this guy with a single hand and snaps his neck. Something to note here is how the guy Kraven is hunting says this:
"You grow slow in your old age, Sergei."
That's because Kraven in the comics is actually 70 years old, but the potion he drinks to give himself superhuman abilities has altered his aging process to give him the physical appearance of a 30-year-old. We then see that Kraven is genuinely upset with how easy it was to catch this guy and how pathetic he is, because all Kraven really wants is a worthy adversary, or in his own words, an equal. That's when one of his men suggests finding a new hunting ground, as he shows him a tablet displaying a map of New York City, where we can see pop-ups of several potential targets, with the first being Felicia Hardy, aka Black Cat. Then as we go down through Manhattan, we see Aaron Davis, otherwise known as the Prowler, and right next to him is Yuri Watanabe, who has since taken up the vigilante alias of Wraith. This was all following the City That Never Sleeps DLC, where she essentially decided to take justice into her own hands after witnessing Hammerhead murder several of her men. But this is a major reveal and confirms that she is going to be in the game and that we will likely cross paths with her at some point in the story. We also can see Tombstone, and eventually both are Spider-Man. We can then see the raft in the distance where the Sinister Six and Wilson Fisk pop up. But there is one key member missing, that being Scorpion. When we last saw him in Spider-Man 2018, we left him inside a container with the Rhino, so perhaps he didn't make it out of there alive. Well, at least that's a theory. He does get mentioned in Miles Morales, so perhaps he was able to escape and is out there somewhere. Who knows? He is also missing from the Raft Inmates database on the left hand side of the tablet. Moving on, we see Taskmaster and Shocker, but more importantly, we get a look at the Lizard, aka Dr. Kurt Connors, who this gameplay trailer is heavily centered around. Excited by seeing all these prospects, Kraven says the great hunt begins and makes his way over to New York with his henchmen. We pick things off 6 months later as we get a first look at Queens in-game, and I'm so happy that they are expanding the map for the sequel. It honestly looks great. We see a bunch of Kraven's hunters begin to approach Dr. Connor's home in search for the Lizard, and this is where Peter bursts through the basement with his black gooey tendrils as he transforms into the famous black symbiote suit. And holy shit, just look at this thing. This is what we all wanted, some epic symbiote gameplay, and boy have Insomniac delivered. We get to see Pete absolutely demolish all of these henchmen, and you can just tell that he's definitely not pulling his punches. This is also our first look at the HUD for Spider-Man 2, which actually has a few changes. The map looks to be redesigned in the bottom right, and now there are 2 ability wheels on screen for both the L1 and R1 buttons. The ones on the left appear to be the symbiote suit abilities, as we can see him use the symbiote punch to pin this hunter up against a car. And then he does this pinball move where he sort of rolls into a group of enemies. But the most devastating of all the attacks is probably the ground slam, where 4 tendrils just shoot out of him and grab all the enemies and smash them straight into the ground. It also looks like they have added a new parry mechanic of some sorts, as we see the symbiote sort of block this incoming attack and stagger the enemy. The PlayStation blog post says, "Strike back with aggressive parries to gain the upper hand, or cast a web to shunt enemies between a hard place and a harder place. You can also activate a classic dodge to get out of danger, but don't get too comfortable. Some attacks can't simply be dodged and will require a parry to properly evade them. Most games will have you parry and block regular attacks and dodge the unblockable ones, but it seems that they have flipped the switch on that for Spider-Man 2. It'll be interesting to see how this mechanic plays out, but parrying is a much welcome addition in my eyes. And look, the combat was already pretty decent in the first 2 games, but based off this short preview of all these new abilities, man, this is going to be epic. After clearing out all the enemies, Spider-Man makes his way over to the squad car where he hears that the Lizard has been located at the Harlem Fish Market. And because Pete is obviously ages away in Queens, we get the chance to see character switching for the first time, which is something that we're probably going to be able to do at multiple points throughout the story. We then see it swap straight to Miles where he becomes the playable character, and here we get to see him pull off a super slingshot where he connects to 2 poles and yeets himself forward, giving him a massive boost. And this is something I know so many people were asking for, and once again it looks like they're delivering. But it doesn't stop there, as we get a first look at the web wings, which straight up give us the ability to fly. We then see Miles jump into a wind tunnel, which gives him a further speed boost and lets him traverse through the city with some serious haste. It looks like Kraven's hunters beat Miles to the market, but this gives us a chance to see some new stealth abilities and tools in Miles' arsenal. This is where the second ability wheel comes into play by using the R1 button. And by the looks of things, it appears to be the tool and gadget wheel. We get a look at the new webline ability, which lets Miles walk over his web like a tightrope, which is definitely going to make those stealth areas so much more unique. We are also able to do a double stealth takedown now, which is awesome. We see Miles use a new gadget called the Web Grabber, which pulls these 3 enemies together to an isolated spot, where he can then chain one of his new abilities called the Thunderburst, which unleashes an electrifying ground pound attack. It seems the enemies are also aware of Miles' new tricks, as we hear one say,
"Watch out for his new powers!"
because it appears that instead of the old yellow bioelectric powers, he has these new blue ones. And I low-key hope they change the name from the Venom Powers title, because that could totally get confusing in this game. Now, out of all the attacks, the Chain Lightning ability is probably my favorite. I mean, just look at this.
Not well.
In the PlayStation blog post, it says that each Spider-Man has their own unique set of skills that can be upgraded via an all-new individual skills tree. Our heroes share technology and train together too, so we also included a shared skill tree that offers parallel upgrades for both. Okay, so that is pretty cool. There's going to be some transferable skills and upgrades, and some specific ones tailored to each hero. I wonder if the symbiote is going to have its own separate skill tree. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. Miles then investigates the garage, following the lizard-sized holes in the walls and half-eaten fish on the ground. We then see him navigate through this tight area filled with pipes, which low-key was giving off some horror vibes with the music being played and scratches on the wall. We see Ganke is still helping out Miles as he is piloting this drone, and after opening this door, we see that the lizard has been shedding his skin, which means of course he is getting bigger. Pete then smashes through the roof, fully tendrilled out in the symbiote suit, and here we learn that this is the first time that Miles has seen the symbiote, so perhaps Pete only just acquired it shortly before this mission. The two are then interrupted by the lizard, who smashes out the wall, forcing both heroes to follow. We then get to see a chase sequence down the East River, where Peter and Miles work together to try and stop both Kraven's hunters and Dr. Connors. Throughout this section, there are a few things I want to point out. Firstly, we can see that Miles' HUD icons are quite different to Peter's, in that his takes this neon cartoonish style from both the Into and Across the Spider-Verse films, which I think is a pretty neat feature to help distinguish between who you are controlling. And it will be interesting to see if this is something that we'll be able to toggle or change in-game as well. Next, we hear over the comms that Pete says,
"Can't lose Connors. Harry's dying, and he's the only one who can help."
So last we saw, Harry had the symbiote and Dr. Connors was helping Norman to try and cure him. And in the post-credit scene for Miles Morales, Norman had had enough and ordered Kurt to release him from the medical tank he was in. Well, clearly since then, the symbiote has transferred from Harry to Pete, and Dr. Connors has resurged back into the lizard. And we do know that Pete has already dealt with him before, as we found a vial of the lizard's blood in the first game. It's going to be really interesting to see how they fill the gap between where we left off off to this mission here. Also, something cool is that this area, being the East River, is actually fully traversable and explorable according to the PlayStation blog post. So alongside Queens and possibly Brooklyn, it looks like this whole river area is another playable region. We see Miles swing through and take out boats and jet skis whilst avoiding incoming projectiles, and some of the transitions and animations in this part are awesome. We see one of Kraven's gunships start firing at a water ride boat, and this is where we get to see our next gameplay swap from Miles back to Peter. And throughout the entire trailer, it is super evident that this Pete is different, and I have to say it's hats off to Yuri Lowenthal because his voice work does a great job at capturing how the symbiote is changing Pete.
I warned you about going after Connors. Now this is on you.
There was only one thing that came to my mind when I heard this voice.
Get back here, Shocker! Shocker!
We also get to see that Pete has the web wings ability as well, which he uses to catch up to the chopper. As he approaches the aircraft, it sends defensive missiles right at him. This is where we see the symbiote cast a shield around him, protecting him from the blast. The hunters try to net Pete, but Miles is able to save him, but falls into the river himself. And of course, we can't forget that there is a human dinosaur swimming around still, but thanks to Miles' cloaking ability, he is able to avoid the lizard. Miles then swings onto Genki's drone and starts wake surfing it as the lizard tries to eat him. This is also where we get our best look at the lizard, and between him and Kraven, I think Insomniac have knocked this one out the park. Our heroes decide to do an alley-oop play to take out the gunship by throwing Genki's drone right at them, blowing up the aircraft. And I love how Genki is screaming the entire time as it's getting thrown. Like, come on, the dude's probably just sitting at a desk at home. Following this, the lizard is able to sneak away into the sewers, but then the gunship starts flying down onto the dock, heading straight for some civilians. Both our heroes have to swing in and save them, and after grabbing this guy, Peter fully just throws him onto the floor because he's got bigger fish to fry. Even Miles looks completely shocked by this. You can clearly tell that the symbiote is taking its toll on him, and this final scene with Miles makes that evident.
Save the tracker. Let's go, man, before he gets too far.
No. He's mine.
You sure? He's got big teeth.
So do I.
He's not normally like that, right?
No. He's never like that.
Alright, did you guys catch that small detail? Well, if you look at Pete's eyes, you can see them change from the traditional Spider-Man shaped eyes to the more Venom shaped eyes, which just shows that the symbiote is taking over. I'm so excited after that trailer. I thought it was amazing, and it has me even more hyped than ever for Spider-Man 2. Sadly, we didn't get an official release date for the game, but in the PlayStation blog, it said the following. While we can't confirm a date today, we are on track for fall 2023, and hope to be able to share a final release date soon. Stay tuned for future updates for Marvel Spider-Man 2, including edition information and pre-orders. So hopefully this means the game isn't going to get delayed, fingers crossed. And in the coming months, the promo and marketing for the game should only ramp up, which we all can't wait for. There were some major details in this trailer, and we got a good look at a couple confirmed villains. But make sure you click this video here if you want to see 10 more villains that have the potential to pop up in Marvel Spider-Man 2. I hope you enjoyed this one, and as always guys, take care.